question from Sonia. Interested in different visa and money requirements for different countries. My neighbours do 6 months here, 6 months in Thailand every year. We're interested in doing the same. So talk to us about the impacts on tax, Centrelink, Medicare for extended periods of away. I mean, and we could probably, Thailand seems to be quite popular with some of these questions today. With Thailand, should we do 6 or should we do 7 months here and 4, 5?
It'll depend.
Versa.
It'll depend on your circumstances. So what assets you hold is an issue. The time spent in country, can you legally go to that country is another one. Obviously, Thailand's always a popular choice because lower cost of living. Previously, they had laws like they only taxed you on interest and income earned inside Thailand. So you could have your self-managed super fund or super fund sitting outside of Thailand drawing income from it and they wouldn't tax you. That's all slowly changing. It hasn't negated Thailand as an appealing destination, but whether you choose one or the other depends on what you hold. So coming back to the example I provided before, if they had a principal place of residence in Australia and it's, let's say, most folks now it's sort of 2 or 3 million the norm, which is still boggles my mind, then you'd want to stay tax resident of Australia because otherwise you lose that tax-free status. As soon as you become a non-resident of Australia, you lose the main resident exemption and that property defaults to becoming an income property. So, and if you decide to sell that overseas, you'll pay tax all the way back to date of purchase, which is huge. So, if you're someone who doesn't own any property in Australia, then you're probably better off being a non-resident out of Thailand because you can build a share portfolio in Australia, capital gains tax-free plus super. I don't know. There's a lot of things that sort of tentacles that go in that direction.
And probably the last question, we'll keep this in the same bunch. Jennifer asks, is it better to keep retirement money overseas and bring it over as needed monthly and risk exchange rate deterioration over 20 to 30 years, or just bring it all down now and pay taxes? Like, do you see pretty much a one and done or even a short kind of DCA, the exchange rate over 6 or 12 months or something like that? What do you say to that?
DCA works best while you're an expat.
Right.
We always say you want to accrue wealth in the country you intend to return to, retire to, because one of the key risks that expats face is currency risk.
Yeah. And for those, sorry everyone, DCA is dollar cost averaging. So it could be making the currency exchange over a 6 or 12 month period and getting the average exchange rate over that period. So sorry.
So if you think about it, you spend 5 years in the UK and you accumulate all your wealth in sterling, you're hoping and praying that the sterling will be the strongest on the day of your departure. Yeah. Who knows? It means currency risk is such a huge thing and volatility is massive, even more than equity markets. Whereas if every month you're transferring some pounds back to Australia, at the end of your 5 years, the money's there waiting for you. And some months you've got good prices, some months you've got bad prices and so on and so forth. So, but it averages out and smooths out that volatility. It's not a matter of trying to beat the market. Companies have gone bust trying to beat the FX market with a lot more resources than you do. So to me, it's aggregating that over that period of time. And the best example I can provide is right now. Over the last 12 months, the Australian dollar has gone from 62 cents to the US dollar to 72 cents to the US dollar. If you were saying this time last year, 62, it's too expensive, I'm going to wait, you would beg for 62 cents right now when it's at 72. So to me, that process happens in a very gradual sort of way. When you do return back to Australia, you virtually have a finite amount of time to move that money back into the country before you are taxed. Because let's say, for example, you leave $1 million or pounds or euros overseas, and then 12 months later you take it back to Australia. Now, you might have held off to try and get a better exchange rate. The ATO will view that as classifying cash as an asset because you've had plenty of time to move the money. You've left it there to get a better return, and you will pay capital gains tax if the exchange rate between when you arrived back and when you transferred is big enough to make a gain. They'll go, you did that to make a capital gain.
Okay, so I'm hearing make a decision and bring it down over a short period of time.
Yep, 100%.
Yep.
So long during the expat journey and short on the repatriation.
And finally, on that, if someone had, like I had a client a million years ago and they had like over $10 million equivalent up in the UK, I think we found a wholesale exchange transfer like at one of the big banks in private wealth or something. How are we bringing big amounts down? Like,
Shop around.
surely, yeah.
So we essentially use the three-prong approach and we take the best offer. Obviously, if you've got a reasonable amount of liquidity with the bank, you should be able to get preferred rates. Ask them, push them for it. Ask to be put through to their treasury department. Don't talk to the retail, sort of salesperson, because they're just quoting the spot, whatever their retail rate is.
They've got discretion.
If you're transferring a sole amount of money, ask you put through the treasury department, and they'll give you a more of a specialised quote. Option number one. Option number two is you have your currency brokers. So your Wise, your Revoluts, OFX, those sort of guys and girls. Have accounts on different currency brokers because they're all different. Wise and Revolut, they thrive in the lower dollar amounts, whereas OFX is not as competitive. They're competitive, but not as competitive. Whereas when you're transferring a larger one, OFX comes into its own. And
so you have to shop around.
You have to shop around. Don't, banks rely on people be lazy, that you can jump on your phone and go, dump, done, off to have my morning coffee, and that's been delegated. And we're talking, if you're transferring north of $1 million, we're talking sometimes $10,000 to $20,000 differences in these balances. They're huge. So don't be lazy. Think of the offset on the other side. Best way to think of it mentally when you're looking at these things is there's the spot rate, which no one gets. And then what you have is a margin on top away from the spot rate, what actually that exchange rate is. You shouldn't be paying more than 0.5% on top of what the spot rate is. To give you an idea, if you walk into a NAB, CBA or a Westpac branch and said, I want to transfer this money overseas, you got to pay between 3 to 5%.
It's funny you say that, Brett. My rule of thumb for anyone just traveling on a holiday, they're like, what's the best card that I should use? I'm like, rule of thumb, not one of the big Four and Macquarie accounts. Use your INGs, your Upbanks, your Wise, because you're just going to get done on the spread.
It kills them. I'm convinced that their bonuses, their annual bonuses, are funded from just that margin on FX. It is so big. It is ridiculous.
It's wild. Like, rule of thumb, traveling overseas, don't use a card from a big four bank. Yeah. And probably you'll pay it on a credit card too. Like, I would think. I just use my everyday Visa debit when I travel because it's just the best exchange rate that you'll get.
Those Visa debit cards are very, very good. And I think, the most recent one we saw was a client was about to lose $18,000 Australian dollars. And we got him just in time, and we hooked him up with OFX and said, talk to these guys. OFX, and it's different too. Wise are great for smaller amounts, but there's no accountability. Whereas OFX, you've got an account manager. There's that one throat to choke. And when you're transferring a sales amount of money, you want to make sure that money gets there. And if
they stuff it, they will cover it.
Exactly.
If you log in and doing the wrong number and transferring $300,000 somewhere and it doesn't arrive because you've got a fat thumb, well, that's on you.
And they're ASX listed, APRA regulated, ASX, so on and so forth. So to me, it's that accountability because I don't know if I've seen a lot, and I've had myself my own experience of problems with chatbots overseas when you've transferred money and you got no one to talk to. You just go around in circles on these chatbots and it drives you nuts. So,
rule of thumb for chatbox: type this command: speak to agent.
Yep.
Hey, it's Glenn here. Thank you so much for watching today's video. You made it to the end. Can I ask a favor? Can you hit that like button and maybe hit subscribe if you want to get notified when we release further videos just like this one, whether you watch the Money podcast or Retire Right. And remember, if you want to learn more about investing, I've got an investing book, The Quick Start Guide to Investing, and there's a link in the description to get your hands on a copy. Thank you so much. Bye.